All right, welcome back, Big Board. Had to do a quick little camera reset there because I screwed up. I had some information on the table there that probably needs to remain private. What do you know? So, the Fate of All, I ran two battles with the same forces. The first battle we did on the tactical map that you've seen. I think I've posted some photographs of that. Very much like Great Battles of History, but not. And we'll get into that in a minute. And then I ran what I would call an operational battle on the operational map using what's the correct term for it? I think it's just called the land battle. Land combat table, I guess, is the one that I'm looking at versus the battle, what I call the Malay combat table. I'll show you the two tables in a sec. So anyway, so there were basically two armies of about 30 fighting steps, and then the combat factors were relatively close as well. I want to say, I know for a fact in the operational battle, unfortunately for Memnon, based on how we chose for him to fight the battle, because we rolled a die randomly to see if he would intercept Alexander, which of Alexander's columns he would try to intercept, based on the fact that he had elected to intercept, and so that was 50 factors attacking 54. So it ended up putting him at a 1-2 combat. Hang on a second, the cat. All right, now I have no idea where I was. I think I was talking about 1-2 combats on the operational map. And using the combat factors for the tactical map, I think it was roughly equivalent as well. Different resolution there in any case, but it's equivalent sized armies is my point in terms of stacking points and combat value on the tactical map. So what were the differences in the two? Well, surprisingly close results. On the operational map, we had 11 steps lost versus 5 for the Greeks, and then when the Persians elected to retreat, they had to suffer pursuit and all this sort of stuff. They lost an additional 4, possibly 5 actually. I just rounded one off down to 0. So call it 15 steps of the 30, so half their army, massive losses. And then in the tactical battle, this one where we used the tactical map, we had a loss ratio of 14 all up, including the pursuit, and just 3 for Alexander. Now, one of the cool things that does is that was a battle, given the size of it. So that means Alexander's morale is going to go up 5. We're going to punch that up 5. And we're going to take the Persian morale down 5. I won't show you that on the screen. That's kind of tedious. Where is it? If I can find it. So they go down now to 43. So they've already lost 7 morale going through the exercise here. Let's just zoom in on Alexander's army. I'm trying to get it off the counters here and off the charts. Tighten this up a little bit, zoom in. Now you can see that there are 2 numbers, so look at these hypacists here, 4 and 7. So 4 would be the combat value on the tactical map, and 7 would be the value on the, or is it the other way around now? Doggone it. Let me just check. Yeah, it's the other way around. 7 on the tactical map, so that's their Malay value, and then 4 would be for the operational stuff. So you can see there's a difference for a reason, and it all pans out here. You can see that the phalanxes are quite powerful, and even when they're reduced, they go 4-7, right? They stay basically the same strength even when they've lost some capability, because they're a large unit, got 3 steps in them. Whereas, heavy cav, just a couple hundred guys, so there's no step there, which means that very easy when it gets to that point where you've got to take losses at the end of the battle and go through those calculations, you lose all these steps, and then you've got to work out, well, what comes off, based on what happened. And so that they become very expensive to replace. So you want to be careful there. So from a pure mechanical standpoint, let's talk about that a little bit. Using the tactical map and the rules for that, movement, being locked in combat or engaged in combat, marching to close, missile fire, cavalry charges and stuff like that. And I think I mentioned to Fabrizio that based on all the reading I had done, I had not really seen the Persians use charges, except maybe occasionally with heavy cavalry, but they didn't have a lot of heavy cavalry. It's very light cav centric. Excuse me. And so my point there is, you get a bonus, right, for doing charges, and I don't believe that the Persians should get that bonus, but that is what it is. Anyway, it looks like someone, maybe a cat, has been messing up my action here off camera. All my little political markers are out of whack up here. Just right there. All right, so mechanically, it feels just like great battles of history, but it's just different enough to be actually a little frustrating, just because you've got great battles of history ingrained in your head and you're trying to let those things go. And I found it a little bit of a challenge until I stopped thinking about it and just did it. So real simple exercise, and I've written about this on the blog, so you can read an actual write-up of a battle and see how they all work, how melee works. But we're taking the difference between the two combat factors, looking for all the modifiers down here, rolling a die, and then both sides, just like in Clash of Spears, are going to receive a loss. So you really got to be careful about who you're attacking and how, because by the time you add in your leadership value, which for Alexander, he's got a 5, so he's getting +5 on his die roll on a 1d10. That's punching him up on an average die roll of 6 or 5 or 6. He's gonna get, with before anything else, he's gonna be somewhere up around 10 or 11 anyway. So that's great for him. Still going to lose a step no matter what. And if you use, for instance, heavy cavalry as you're using them for the charge bonus, well, if you've got to take a loss, it's coming from the heavy cav. Now, the other thing that's different here also, so first of all, the mass of the units is something that's important in combat on the tactical level. So if you've got a weight ratio, which is purely number of steps versus number of steps, you work out this weight ratio and you go, okay, well, I've got 4 steps, you've got 2 steps. Bonus, I'm going to get a bonus here. And then depending on this, are there any other, I don't think there are any other primary modifiers. I think that's pretty much it. So, that gives you all the assessment of whether it's a phalanx or a hoplite or a light infantry or whatever the case may be. Because you might have, for instance, hip assists where you have, 2, but they might be going up against light infantry with 4 steps, 4 stacking points, but because there's 4,000 of them, right? Versus your 2,000, and you may have better equipment and better armor and all the rest of it, but you're still going to be put in a situation where you're outnumbered and you're fighting, but you're going to get the benefit of the better combat results column because of your combat capability and your weapons platform that you're using. So I like that mechanic. It really does simplify the whole Great Battles of History thing, where you go to the table and you look up, okay, Legionnaire versus medium Celtic infantry versus skirmisher versus whatever. Get a table rating to look at, and then you go to the Clash of Spears and you look at that column, and then you do your adds and subtracts and all that sort of nonsense, and plus all the other modifiers that go into it. So it cleans a lot of that up. Uses the same leadership management system, so to work out who activates when. Lowest capable unit goes first. Alexander can, I'm going to use air quotes, trump whenever he wants, pretty much, as can any other leader who is better rated than any other leader. So that's all done automatically. Where you're going to run into trouble by keeping on doing that is at some point you're going to get a bad die roll and things aren't going to go your way, right? So you got to be judicious in how you use that, because there are leader losses if you roll a 10, natural 10 or whatever the case may be. So there's that. Now, that compared to, and there's a whole movement system here as well. So all the units are going to get 4 movement points unless you're cavalry and you're going to get 6, right? Just on the tactical map. When you go to combat in the operational scale of things, you're potentially going to end up on the 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 table a lot of the time. You can see there's a handful of modifiers here, and once again, very clever. If I've got 2-to-1 benefit of cavalry over you, I'm going to get a bonus to my die roll. If I have 2-to-1 and light infantry and skirmishers, and depending on the terrain, I'm going to get a benefit. Obviously, I'm going to be able to add the difference of my battle leader's capability against yours. I think that's how that works there. And then you get on this table. Now, red results are bad results. So both sides are going to roll. And so if I've got 54 factors, I'm attacking at 1-to-1, and you've got 50 factors versus my 54 factors, you're attacking at 1-to-2, and you're going to go through these rounds of combat, and both of you will roll, and both of you will get a result. And so I roll, and if Alexander rolls on the 1-to-1 column, he rolls a 10, he's going to inflict 3 steps of damage, and he gets to choose the damage because it's red. If Memnon rolls and he rolls a 7 on the 1-to-2 column, he gets to inflict 1 step of damage, and I get to choose, Alexander gets to choose which step is lost. So pretty clean, pretty straightforward. Rounds continue until there ain't no love left, until there's nothing left to fight with, or you rout, or you elect to retreat and make a die roll based on your leader's capability. And it took Memnon a little while thinking he was going to be okay, and he was going to, because he was, chipping away at Alexander's force, so that's a good thing. But losses became so high, with a couple of good rolls from Alexander, where he was knocking out 3 enemy units at a time, enemy steps at a time, stacking points, and Memnon was not knocking out anything. And so then it became a disparate situation where I think in the end, let me look at the notes. In the end, we ended up with something like 3 or 4 stacking points left, and 10 or 11 for the Greeks. So they eventually made their retreat roll, and so retreated, lost more steps in the retreat and pursuit, etc. A bloody beatdown for the Persians. So, how do I feel about those two systems? Now that I've executed on a battle and got it right, I actually posted a video and took it down because it was incorrect. I had my Great Battles of History hat on, was moving guys, and I was going to resolve all the combats, simultaneously, and you don't do that. You do an activation and you roll through that leader's activation. He will move, he will activate all his guys, he will rally guys, he will do all his bits, and then you'll resolve melee and missile fire and melee, and then you will carry on from there to the next activation and go through all of the leaders that way, versus GBOH's Great Battles of History's model, where everybody moves and then we resolve melee in some way, shape, or form. All right, so that's that. So I like it. I like it enough that I think I want to use those rules more than the land battles. The land battles, the operational scale thing, it's just a little too abstract for me. I think the mechanics get the flavor right, certainly, because you get a bonus for cav and you get a bonus for this and bonus for that. But you don't get to experience any of the tactics on the battlefield. The maneuver that might occur with the light cavalry or heavy cavalry, and Alexander's prowess is really brought to the fore. Or if Memnon had been attacking some other, some Nimrod, Macedonian leader who wasn't good, which certainly could happen, because look, here's the leaders that he was going to face off against if he rolled the other formation. They had strategy ratings of 2, so not good, right? That would have given Memnon some significant boost on the tactical map. So I think I'd like the tactical flavor more than I like the operational thing. I think it really would depend on how big is the battle going to be, right? And how meaningful is it in the scope or the context of the game and the operation that's going on, and is it critical for me to win the battle without a lot of losses? You know what it reminds me of? Here's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Rome Total War, those games, the PC games, where you can play the battle and move all the guys and do all the fighting and control everything, or you can just push auto-resolve. It reminds me of that. And you know how sometimes if you ever played that game, you push auto-resolve, and even though it says you're going to win, you get this surprise result where you lose a lot more than you thought you would, and your best leader dies, and you're like, what the heck? And so then you go back and restore a save. I used to save the game right before every battle. If I didn't like the result, I would then go manually fight it, or a lot of the times I would, change my tactics or whatever the case may be. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Enjoy. I think this has got lots of bones, lots of meat on the bone. I don't know, I haven't got far enough in to say whether it's awesome or not, but it sure is interesting. It's probably, if you're not into logistics, this is probably not a game for you, right? You gotta know where you're going, how you're gonna get there, how to feed the boys. I have some questions around some of the ways that supply works. I'm yet to reconcile some things, like moving 2 different forces and then combining them and then laying siege. Like how does that all work? And then what happens to the in the fight at the end of the turn? What happens with supply if you're sieging and do you have to consolidate those 2 columns, or do they say it stays 2 separate columns? We'll see. I need to dig into the rules a little bit more and read a little bit more, and also just get more reps with the rules, just to get more comfortable with them. But supply is pretty straightforward. Basically, it's a talent, one talent for everything you're buying when it comes to supply, and you can either forage for it, requisition it from a town, or take it, right? Anyway, we'll get more into that once we've had some more reps with it. No point belaboring the points on that. I think the flavor's right, and a certainly critical aspect to the entire campaign. But we want to make sure that it's playable as well. And it's super dynamic at the moment because there's lots of forces floating around the map. So we'll see what happens. All right, I'll talk to all y'all soon. Ciao.